All right, well, so let's get this show on the road. Let me thank you all for coming. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I know a lot of you have been here for the last couple of days for the Metrics Conference, and so this has been 2 long days of really intense discussions. I promise that I will make this brief, hopefully, and insightful, definitely. I do want to thank you all, but I really, really particularly want to thank the ANDE team, and I don't see many of them around. But Dana and Stella and Jenny and Joanna, who's not here, Eric, I saw, Sarab, and particularly Genevieve, who's hiding in the left corner. Everyone turn around and look at Genevieve. Raise your hand. So she led this effort, from data analysis to design to details to delivery, and I think she may have even picked the wine, so if you like the wine, give her some credit. If not, blame me. We're really proud of this report, and I will show that it is the 4th one. Love PowerPoint. It is by far the most comprehensive one that we've ever put together. It reflects data that came from a variety of sources, including our own member survey, a new collaboration this year that we launched with ImpactBase, which is a database that the Global Impact Investing Network has put together, a variety of third-party sources. And for the first time, we've been able to get to firm-level data that actually shows some outputs and even on the verge of outcomes. And we really have, I think, pushed it further than we've ever been able to. So we're not where we want to be entirely, but it does represent a growth in our ability to tell the story about the SGB sector and what we've been able to accomplish as a network and what our members are doing. So I hope that you will appreciate my quick summary. I'm going to just kind of give you the flavor of the report, but obviously they're now available and we encourage you to grab them on your way out. So let me give you a little context. We live in a world today in which one of the biggest problems that we face is the lack of jobs. As we think about what's going on in the Middle East and North Africa, the challenges that we see in Africa, we need to create jobs. And according to the International Labor Organization, we need to create 400 million new jobs in the next decade to maintain the level of unemployment that we have today, to maintain it. That level of unemployment isn't exactly leading to peace and comedy in the world. So we ask ourselves, what does that mean? Well, first of all, just to give you a sense of that, 400 million is the population of the United States, France, and Ghana combined. So that's every single person in those countries getting a job. So how are we going to do that? Where are those jobs going to come from? And our belief at ANDE is that a lot of those jobs are going to be created by small and growing businesses. These are the firms that we focused on for the last 4 years. They are firms that are trying to grow, that are businesses that have made it already, that have 5 or 10 employees at a minimum, up to about 200 or 250, and are led by growth-oriented managers that believe that they can grow their companies. They are bigger than micro-enterprise. They are smaller than those businesses that can typically be served by capital coming from emerging market private equity. They are a sub-segment of the SME space. So we're not talking about mom and pop shops. We're not talking about former state-owned enterprises or even medium-sized companies that have other access to capital. We're talking about this segment which, if we can support, we think can create incredible job growth for developing countries all around the world and can also be a source of social and environmental positive gain for these countries. So that's what we focus on, and we did have to create a brand new acronym. I'm sorry, we talk about SGBs. Interesting piece about SGBs, though, is that it's not just that they create jobs, they create higher quality jobs. We need jobs not just for 400 million, but jobs that can sustain their families. And so what we see and why we're so excited about SGBs is that they tend to pay more than microfinance or micro-enterprises do. And as they grow, they not only hire more people, they pay better wages. So we think that not only do they create jobs, but they create higher quality jobs, and it's imperative that we find ways to support them in doing that. So when we think about the sector, one critical piece that I suspect most of you understand who've been in this space is that it's kind of complex. You've got a variety of different sources of capital, some of which are providing capital to capacity development providers, some of which are providing capital to investment funds, some of which just make grants. Ultimately, it all flows through when you're trying to get small and growing businesses. But the key challenge here is that if we want these businesses to thrive, it's not just about the money. You need to think about how you provide technical assistance, capacity development, training, as well as the capital for most of these businesses if they are going to create the jobs that we hope them to. So one of the key ways that that's happening is through incubators and accelerators. ANDE has dozens of incubators or accelerators, and we use the terms interchangeably in our membership. They're kind of popping up like Texas wildflowers on a spring highway. Had to get it in, y'all. We want to understand how they work, why they work, when they work, and what are the elements of successful accelerators. How do you measure that? Because they are so prevalent today in emerging markets. We need to figure out and be a force for positive change in identifying those that are working so they get more money, those that aren't working so they either get better or they shut down. And we have launched this year a major effort with a variety of partners. I know Emory is in the room and Village Capital, trying to understand how these incubators and accelerators work and how we can do a better job of providing that information to those that are engaged in that endeavor. On the financial side, what we see is pretty impressive growth in terms of the number of funds starting in 2004 up to 2008. When the economic crisis hit in 2008, you saw a decline in the number of funds focused on small and growing businesses in emerging markets. There was a big recovery year in 2011, and then last year, 2012, was a strong year. It's the third highest in the history that we could find. But the reality is that it is still very difficult to find funding, and I'll talk more about this. We love this growth, but there is still such an incredible financial need for SGBs around the world. We're happy to report, looking here at data that we got from Impact Base in our own survey, not only that you see more capital being deployed, so close to $220 million last year. That's somewhat of a function of the fact that we just have more companies reporting and more funds reporting, but the average amount of investment per fund is also going up. So both of those trends are positive from our perspective. But we're still small. Let's be realistic. If you look at microfinance, so the sector below us, they made $90 billion in loans last year. $90 billion, which is an extraordinary amount. If you look at emerging market private equity, which is the sector above SGBs, they were able to raise into their funds close to $40 billion. And we only got 413 that we could identify committed to small and growing business related funds. So that's 1% of what emerging market private equity was. So it's growing, but it's still small and growing. This year, ANDE chose to focus on sort of three key opportunities for the sector. And there are many other opportunities and challenges, but these three we think are particularly important. One, there is something that we call the most missing part of the missing middle. These are those firms that are at the startup stage that are looking for capital between $20,000 and $200,000. It is extraordinarily difficult for these firms to get capital. This is a chart that shows that only 6% of the investment funds that we could identify that focused on SGBs focus on this earliest stage. And unfortunately, most emerging market countries don't have angel capital organizations, don't have venture capital organizations, they don't have stock exchanges, and there's a real problem with trust. So you might have family that trusts you, but friends that trust you are pretty hard to find. So intrinsically, the structure that exists for these smallest businesses above microfinance, but the lower end of our spectrum, is particularly challenging. And so one of the things that we did this year with our colleagues at the Argydius Foundation was to launch something called the Argydius ANDE Finance Challenge. This was a challenge that was aimed at creating new mechanisms and scaling those that did exist to try to unlock capital at that size. Some was aimed at banks, some was aimed at investment funds, some are new commercial investment vehicles. In total, we gave out €1 million to 5 different awardees. And so they're in the process now of piloting those new mechanisms with hopes that at least 1 or 2 of them will be successful and we'll find more scalable ways of unlocking capital. Second major focus, women's entrepreneurs. In the world, 50.3% or something are women. but it's 30% of the world's entrepreneurs. What an incredible asset that we're not fully leveraging. Women entrepreneurs generally face greater challenges than men entrepreneurs, and it ain't easy for the guys, but it's harder to raise capital. They have harder access to markets. They don't have the networks. Many educational programs are not available to them. In some countries, they can't even leave their house. It's pretty hard to be an entrepreneur when you don't have internet access and you can't leave your house. So we think that there's incredible value that can be unlocked and prosperity creating potential if we can help women entrepreneurs get access to the resources that they need. And so through our Capacity Development Fund, we funded a project that's being led by a variety of groups, including the Cherie Blair Foundation, Oxfam, Value for Women, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women is engaged. We have a very active women's entrepreneurship working group that's trying to find ways and design best practices that will help women's entrepreneurship programs all around the world. A third focus is on agriculture. This world faces an incredible challenge in producing food for all of us. That challenge is particularly difficult in emerging markets, where most of the food today is produced by very small agriculturalists, smallholder agriculture. That sector tends to be incredibly immature. It's disconnected. It has not been aggregated typically into producer organizations or cooperatives. And there is this incredible potential for us to help produce more food at a more productive way for all of us and create income opportunities for smallholder farmers all around the world. So with Dahlberg and the City Foundation and Skoll Foundation and our new agricultural focus working group, we've been working closely to try to identify what some of the market opportunity might be. And we think there is a potential just for lending to smallholders to go up to $33 billion in the next few years. So 3 areas of focus for this year and for years to come. So let me talk a little bit about ANDE and where we were and where we've been. It's been a hell of a ride. We started from kind of scratch in 2009 with 34 founding members. We're up to 181 as of today. Of those, 62 are emerging market-based members. We started with 2. It's been a real focus for ANDE to try to get more and more emerging market members to participate, because fundamentally we think we need to be working on the ground with organizations that have every incentive to stay in the countries in which they're working. We've gone from 0 regional chapters to 6, sort of reflecting this vision of having a regionally focused effort. We've got chapters in Mexico, for Mexico and Central America, in Brazil, in East Africa, in South Africa, in West Africa, and in India. We've got working groups, and we're 7, I didn't count the ag working group, working on women's entrepreneurship, as I mentioned, youth entrepreneurship, on legal tools for entrepreneurs and for entrepreneurial support organizations, capacity development services, on capital aggregation and how you best structure deals and best structure funds. So we're really trying to impact all the major cross-cutting issues. To help with those, we've given close to $1.8 million in Capacity Development Fund grants. These are dollars that we raise and then re-grant to our members to promote innovation and collaboration in the space. It continues to be one of the sources, we think, of real innovation in our sector, and we hope to continue to do this. Our monthly newsletter reach is 5,300, and I checked before I came upstairs. Our Twitter feed is now over that, so we're like 5,400 Twitter followers. So I think the Metrics Conference, thank you guys for tweeting so much. So we're making our message heard. We are doing training programs, sort of orientation to the sector, and specific training programs on investment management, and have now done 8 of those. And I'm happy to say that our staff has grown from 1.5 when we started, I was the one, to 11. Including 4 regional chapter coordinators that work on the ground every day in developing countries. So we've grown. If we look at the members, you can see that they come in every color and every stripe and every type of business and different business models. They range in size from corporations like Walmart and SAP and eBay to tiny business incubators in places like Bolivia and Kenya and South Africa, Brazil. We've got a majority who provide capacity development services. We've got 30% that are investors, a growing number of research and academic institutions, foundations which are providing capital. So our vision is to create a network which reflects our mission of creating ecosystems, and we know that all of these players play an important role. As I mentioned, we're operating globally. On this slide, the key point is just that Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Asia are the places where most of our members are doing their work. But collectively, ANDE members work in every single emerging market country in the world. More important than the numbers is the impact. Overall, ANDE members have invested $1.7 billion in the SGBs since their creation. In the past 4 years, close to $400 million in capacity development dollars has been invested to support SGBs, and 60,000 SGBs overall have been held by ANDE members. So that's a nice number. What I'm particularly excited about is that it actually, again, the quality of impact is high. It's not just numbers. But it seems, and this is preliminary information, that when ANDE members touch a small and growing business, they actually make a difference. So this is a chart that compares employment growth and sales growth to World Bank data that tries to look at similar sized companies in emerging markets. And you'll see that ANDE member touched firms have done a better job. And again, more preliminary data that looks at ILO wages, you'll find that ANDE member SGBs pay much more than the average minimum wage in the countries in which we were able to compare, and significantly higher than the average overall wage in these countries. So what's next? I mentioned regions a number of times. We're going to continue our focus on that. We want to put more and more resources into our regional chapters. There are still 2 regional chapters that don't have coordinators yet, and we want to get those in place in West Africa and India this year. We're going to be doing more research that's in the regions. We're going to be doing more programming in regions. In terms of research, I mentioned the focus on accelerators and incubators. That's going to only grow in 2013 and 14. And we also have a very significant ongoing research program to try to strengthen the evidence base based on our core conviction that supporting SGBs leads to prosperity for poor people in developing countries. Communications, we feel like it's time to be a little bit more loud, which may be hard for you all to imagine since some of you have heard me give speeches before, but we want to get out there and tell the story of SGBs in a bigger way, about how small business entrepreneurs really are making a difference. And again, with this impact report, we finally have the data to start making that case in, I think, a deeper and more comprehensive way. So we'll be spending a lot of time this year on these 3 topics. And for those of you that are interested in getting involved in the short term, we just finished our metrics conference. We've got an investment manager training in Kenya. Our CDF fund RFP will be launched in July, and then our annual conference will be in Glen Cove, New York at the end of September this year. So in sum, I think that the sector is making progress. ANDE is making progress. We're beginning to make the case in a way in which people like the World Economic Forum and Clinton Global Initiative and Mitchell Opick is listening to us. So we're out there. We're making a difference. Did she already leave us? Where are you, Mitchell? Ouch. She was so excited by the first part of the speech that she had to leave and go make some more impact investments. But what I chuckled about as I thought about this, we can no longer say that ANDE is a small and growing organization. We are at least a medium and growing organization. But this medium and growing organization has a lot of work to do if we're really going to make a difference on reducing poverty in emerging markets. So I want to thank you for being here. For those of you that are members, thank you for being members. For those of you who are friends and supporters, thank you for helping us in this path. And I hope that you will continue to work with us as we really try to make a difference and build a movement to help small and growing businesses make a difference in the world. And with that, let's have some wine.